Hi, everybody, and welcome to the chair I'm sitting in. I assure you. Uh, Want to do another football video, and this one will be about week one breakdown. Well, kind of a breakdown. I don't look too much into things, I guess, as others do, but we'll do a recap of week one, and then we will go through week two and see how we get where we're going to get as long as. And first, I just want to give a shout out to Carlos Delator. We've been doing some great things on Skoltube. Check that out. Skoltube19, I believe it is called. He's a Viking fan, and we'll be breaking down his game and others coming up. A shout out to there it is, the Grinds podcast. They do one every Wednesday. They do a couple actually, and they have great commentary. Todd is on the left and Matt on the right. They're just great people, uh, friends, great people, friends of friends, and I'm just happy I know uh, all the people I do from these two here, and I just want to extend a hello to them and a big shout out to them. Uh, they bring they bring it. It's not a it's not a oh, there we go. It's not a show sometimes your kids would hear, but that's okay because we're adults as a certain group, and we're going to act such as we don't want a filter. We don't have to have a filter. So anyway, let's get down to week one. What was week one? And it started off last Thursday with the first game, the 100th anniversary of the NFL, and it happened to have the two oldest teams. It was the Green Bay Packers in hot Chicago. Both teams were struggling throughout the game to get any offense going. With Rodgers, he was getting sacked 5 times, four in the first half, I believe. It was just very ugly, very ugly. And then he got some time and he made some things happen. It wasn't one of his picturesque Rodgers games, but it was enough for the Bears. Uh, they got beat defensively or offensively by the surprise of the week, I think, of the Green Bay defense. Nobody really knows them. Clinton Dix is not there anymore. Uh, but Amos is there, and he got the interception at the end of the game. The Packer defense, as young as they are, as unknown as they are, they did the job very well against a fast-paced Chicago offense that did not do much. They were only the Bears only got 46 rushing yards, and that's Trubisky, that's Cohen, that's the rookie. They were getting nothing throughout the whole game. Now, Robinson, the receiver, second half, he did get some looks and some touches and downfield. So Allen Robinson did do his thing, but it wasn't enough as the Packers uh, on the defensive struggle 10-3. So it wasn't a pretty start to the season, but uh, for old timers that love defense, that was a game that you know you certainly enjoyed if you like it. Now let's go to Sunday, bloody Sunday. Tennessee was in Cleveland to start the year, and boy, the hype. And I said, hey, I got to see this game because I want to see how Cleveland comes out. Uh, with all the egos they have in the locker room, new head coach, new offensive court. Well, yeah, new offense pretty much when you have Odell. And so I really wanted to see that, and Make sure I tuned in. They were going against Tennessee, which has a tremendous defense. You got Bird, you got the linebacking core, got the corners going for you, uh, and their offense as well. And they showed up. The Browns, their first drive, they got a touchdown, missed the extra point, and then they were unheard of the rest of the game. Tennessee's defense did a wonderful job against Baker Mayfield. Odell did make some catches, but they weren't breakout ones. Running game was not there. Landry, he got some catches, but not too many. Uh, but the offense of Tennessee was the star to me of the game because Derrick Henry had 84 yards and had a touchdown rushing, plus a receiving touchdown that went for a big, big game. And for fantasy owners like me that have him, I was very, very happy about that because this is Derrick Henry's starting job. He has Deion Lewis there with him. So they have a pretty good 1-2 there in Tennessee with their running offense. Mariota, he's up and down with his quarterbacking, but he doesn't have to be, Aaron Rodgers. He doesn't have to be Breeze. He doesn't have to be like that. He can just manage games. He can rush for some yards. That's fine. The Titans just ran away with it, 43-13, and right away, the Monday morning press, talk shows, and all that, they were just getting on the Browns about, what's this? All this hype, and you don't do anything. You only put 13 on the board and have so many turnovers. That's what happened. Next game, it was the Baltimore Ravens opening up against the Miami Dolphins, and this one was ugly from the start. I believe at the half it was 42-3. So breaking this one down with little time as possible, as I drink my spiked punch. I don't know why. Lamar Action Jackson, I call him. He had a game to remember. I'm telling you, a first half to remember, pretty much. So they were blazing right away, blazing out there. Final score ended up being 59-10, Baltimore. Jackson threw for 324 yards and 5 touchdowns. 5. And it seemed like all the touchdowns that he threw, they were all down the middle, and it was tight ends, it was receivers, it was getting open down the middle, and no safeties were around to help. It was just a Edgar Allan Poe murder, as he would write in his novels way back in the day. And then just Miami couldn't get anything going. Fitzpatrick did his things, as you know. Kenyon Drake just was not there. There is chaos in Miami. And they were bound to have a bad year. And this is not a good start to that bad year. They traded away who they did, before the season started to Houston. Tunsil and Stills. And that kind of deteriorated the roster in the locker room. And there were reports of agents getting on the phone saying, hey, I need to get out of here. I'm not going to be around for this fest all year long. You need to get me out of here. And, we'll see what happens. There's already a cornerback, Micah Fitzpatrick, I believe it was his name. He's going to play week 2. We'll get into that against New England. But there's that cloud of hanging over that story. So in Miami, there's going to be some hard times. Shout out Paramore. and we'll see what happens. Now, this game is very tough to predict because um, it was Buffalo in New Jersey at the Meadowlands to play, MedLife, I call it Meadowlands still, play the New York Jets. And Jets led 16-0 throughout the game. They did enough. Le'Veon Bell did enough. And then, what happened? Uh, Bills and Josh Allen was doing everything. They were running the ball very well. They got stops defensively. They got turnovers. And they scored 17 unanswered to win. And I know for Jets fans, they were hoping for a better outcome because with Le'Veon Bell, you're hoping for better results. You're hoping for wins. And you're hoping for a progression from Sam Darnold. You're hoping the defense would be better. But with all the turnovers, the defense had to come back out. And tired as they were, the Bills' offense just ran through them. So the Bills ended up winning 17-16. It was one of those opening games that, as I say, the first 4 weeks are so unpredictable. Things are going to happen. Crazy things will happen. You just don't know. So you hold on to your hats, you watch games closely, and see what happens. But that was just a hard venture for the Jets and their fans. And by the way, there's some uh, terrible news coming out of the Jets camp with Sam Darnold. He has mono sickness, and he's lost 5 to 10 pounds. So he's not at the facility uh, with the Jets. He is at home trying to get better, and of course, he'll be out week 2. We'll get into that as well. So going on, it's a great win for the Bills. My neighbors down the street, Bills fans. I bet they are happy. So now let's go to the game down the tri-state area. It was the Washington Redskins and the Philadelphia Eagles. Now this one was a shocker from the start because Washington led 17-0. And then the Eagles woke up. And then Carson Wentz woke up. And an old friend who came back, Deshaun Jackson, had a wonderful opening game, as he did last year, if you remember. He had a great first 4 weeks with Ryan Fitzpatrick in Tampa. Well, this time he had it with Carson Wentz. And he ended up having 154 yards receiving and 2 touchdowns that were key. And then the defense took over. And then Washington showed what they can't do without Adrian Peterson. And you would have to believe with Adrian Peterson, they would have kept the lead, kept the momentum, and they would have won the game. They ended up losing 32-27. Washington was 0-1. Philly 1-0. Now, the game with all types of intrigue. I kept my eye on this as well. And it was a wild one, on and off the field for sure. Kansas City at Jacksonville. And oddly enough, it was just one of those games that was unpredictable. The Chiefs, they started out well, and they never let go. Sammy Watkins, who was bound to be a big, big player for the Buffalo Bills, ended up getting traded to the Rams. Then he went somewhere else, and now he's with the Chiefs. He had a great opening game. He had 198 yards receiving and 3 touchdowns, which was just amazing. He seemed to get open and make big runs. So the final score was 40-26. Jared Jack, as the defense goes for Jacksonville, had a bad day. He ended up getting to a shoving match, and then he threw a little slap. I don't call punch because the players that punch the helmets, that's just stupid. That's fist against, medal. So that was just stupid. Um, so he slapped a Kansas City player and he ended up getting ejected, and he didn't know, so he wanted to go back on the field, but they had to hold him, and that was kind of the facsimile of the game, honestly. And then the worst thing that happened, I think, in Jacksonville is that Nick Foles was hit after he did throw a touchdown to D.D. Westbrook. That combination did work for a touchdown. But unfortunately, Nick Foles was hit, brought down, and he has a broken clavicle. He will be out the remainder of the year. Now, some people say, uh, if Jacksonville's in contention, he might be back for week, 16 or 17. But that's one of those things you don't mess with. The injuries, you don't mess with that injury. And you have to heal it properly. You cannot be messing around. So for Jacksonville, not only did they lose, but it felt like a deflator because you had high expectations. You probably weren't going to win this game anyway, but you're going to contend for the division. You're going to contend for a wild card. Get all the right pieces defensively, offensively. Offensively, if everything went well, and all the running backs did their thing, that was going to work. But now, without Nick Foles, they have Grisham coming in, and he did well. He did well in Foles' plays, but we're really going to see how he does as the season goes along, and we'll see if they trade for anybody, but I doubt they will. Uh, let's see what they have with Gresham and go along from here. And a couple of things happened off the field. Um, the game ended up going out. The TV truck of CBS ended up going out, and the game was blacked out for 20 minutes for those viewers. And then it was so hot, the humidity in Florida, as the hurricane passed through during the week, the humidity stayed, and then people were fainting, lying in the stands, and they needed medical attention. So it was just one of those days where it's just ugly all over for Jacksonville, despite the fact they did score 26 points. But they allowed 40 and they lost. Okay, let's go north of there to Charlotte, where the NFC champions, the Los Angeles Rams, played Carolina. And the Panthers, with Cam Newton shaky, and we'll get to that in week two. Um, with Cam, it just seemed like he's overthrowing his receivers. And he had the shoulder surgery, but it's just the throws are too far and too strong. He's just lost his touch, basically. And I really don't care, what he wears off the field. People say like he looks like Medea Todd, but you got to wonder about him. I know he's there long term, but I've been hearing, you trade him. Does anybody even want him? Uh, how long are they going to stand with him? They have a great back like McCaffrey, who had a wonderful day against the Rams defense. He had 2 touchdowns. He had 128 yards rushing, caught some passes, and made this leaping hurdle over Eric Weddle. And unfortunately, I believe on the tape that I saw, McCaffrey's cleat got Weddle in the face somehow. Weddle was bleeding all over, and he was out of the game. I think he'll be back for week two for LA, as they have a big game coming up. LA, well, their offense, you could say, was mediocre. They didn't go to Cooks much. They went to Woods. They went to Cup a lot. But a Goff had a mediocre game. Didn't really light the place up. Todd Gurley had 98 yards, but no touchdowns. But his replacement, Malcolm Brown, ended up getting those within 5 rushing touchdowns. He had 2 of them, I believe. And for you fantasy owners that have Gurley, it's kind of deflating, I bet. But we were told about the Rams, saying, "Hey, there's nothing wrong with Gurley, but he's not being used as much." And you can tell from week 1 that would be a thing. So the final score was 30-27, but it wasn't that close. The Rams were up double digits pretty much the whole game, pretty much until the fourth quarter. It was a good one. Now let's go up to Minnesota. They hosted Atlanta. And Atlanta, for what everybody was saying and what they're worth, they laid an egg. Matt Ryan did not do well. The defense of Minnesota was all over them. Julio Jones didn't get much. Bradley didn't get much. Sanu, not much either. Final score was 28-12. The rushing attack from Minnesota was the key to this game. Dalvin Cook, who came back after missing all of last year, had 111 yards and 2 touchdowns. Great sight to see if you're a Minnesota fan like Carlos De La Torre, Skoltube, and all the Viking fans out there. That was great to see because the hype coming in of Atlanta that they were going to rush in and make some noise, but quickly, Minnesota shut that down. All right, let's go to Seattle and Todd Meske's ball club. Seahawks, they were hosting the Cincinnati Bengals, and this was this was amazing because I thought this game was going to be, like 30-7 or something like that. Well, the Bengals led pretty much the whole game, and then the Seahawks woke up and came back and won 21-20. And Bengals had the chance, but then Flowers recovered a fumble with 14 seconds left, and that meant the whole ball game. But the Bengals, you got to give them credit. Andy Dalton, who's been ridiculed, criticized, and injured, he came out and had a connection without A.J. Green on the field. Joe Mixon did get hurt and was out. But John Ross, he had a monster game. And he's, of course, the main target now for the Bengals, as A.J. Green will probably be out first 8 weeks or more. So that was one of those surprising games that you didn't see coming. And the next one was as well, as the Chargers hosted the Indianapolis Colts, and of course the Colts come in with the retirement of Andrew Luck and Jacoby Brissett taking over. And at the start, it didn't look good for the Colts. The first half, it was awful. The Chargers led the whole way. And then the second half started, and the Colts just woke up. Probably got a good talking to at the half. Brissett was precise with his throws. The running of Marlon Mack, one of my fantasy teams, by the way, he had a monster game. He's with Brissett now at the helm quarterback. He's going to need help, and he got that help with Mr. Mack. He was just amazing. Brissett did throw a couple of touchdowns, but Mack was the one who made the Colts go. He did have a touchdown, a long one, receiving at 174 yards. Hilton did his thing with a couple of catching touchdowns. It's a pretty good game for him. As always, the defense, after being sluggish, did so well for the Colts. Now, with the Chargers, first half they came out firing. They were awesome. Rivers had 3 touchdowns for 333 yards. Eckler did his thing, catching and receiving as he's sitting there. The undrafted running back was taking place of Melvin Gordon. He had a touchdown. Jackson was at 7 yards. Allen had a monster game, 103 receiving yards. Hunter Henry, who did get hurt, by the way, he'll be out for 4 to 6 weeks. Mike Williams, who got hurt as well, will be out for week 2. So that's the minuses for the Chargers in that respect. Eckler ended up scoring the winning touchdown in overtime, but it was amazing how they got to overtime. Colts needed 8 points, and they got it. It was a 2-point conversion by Hilton as he tightrope the sideline and dove in, and he made it happen. Then the Chargers got the coin toss received, and they went downfield on the first drive of overtime, and Eckler ended up running it in for the score. And that was a great game. I was happy to see that the Colts came back. Now, is every game going to be like this for the Colts, or even worse? That's the one thing that you have to see as a schedule goes for them. Now, as Todd would say, Santa Clara went to Tampa to play the Buccaneers, the 49ers and Bucks. This game was back and forth. And of course, you're not going to have great quarterback play for each team. As much as Garofalo gets paid, he had 1 touchdown and 1 interception. Winston had 1 touchdown and 1 pick. And both didn't throw for many yards at all. The rushing wasn't there for the 49ers as well, as they've had a couple of injuries. They're down to their third string back starting. Kittle had an okay game. But this was mostly a defensive game, as Winston threw for 194, and then not much rushing, not much passing. It was the 49er defense who did the job. Fumble recovery, couple of interceptions, 1 interception that Richard Sherman returned back for the touchdown and crushing blow, as the 49ers ended up winning 31-17. Let's go now out west, as Detroit went to Glendale to face the Arizona Cardinals. Now this one was it was in the Lions' den. They had it, and then the Lions lioned. They allowed the rookie quarterback Kyler Murray to come back. Kyler had 2 touchdowns and an interception. Matthew Stafford in first half and throughout had 3 touchdowns and no picks. So I guess it wasn't his fault. But the Lions led 17-6, and then 24, and then the Cardinals came back to tie it. To tie it, scoring 18 unanswered. It was one, like I said, it's one of those games where you just don't know, and anything can happen. And it reminded me of a game between these two in Detroit back in 2005. I believe it was with Arizona and Detroit, and it was Anquan Bolton's rookie first game, and Larry Fitzgerald, Josh McCown, John Kitna, I believe, was starting, or Joey Harrington for the Lions, and that one was a wild one. Stafford again, 385 yards passing, 3 touchdowns. Quarterback rating was 112 and 110. Rushing wasn't really good, but Hackenson, the rookie tight end, had a wonderful game. At 6 receptions for 131 yards. Amendola 104, Jones Jr. 56, Galloway with 42. Each had a touchdown other from Jones Jr. So it looked great for the Lions at the beginning. Kyler Murray woke up 308 yards, 2 touchdowns, 1 pick. David Johnson had 82 yards rushing. Fitzgerald had a wonderful game with 8 receptions for 113 yards. Also, David Johnson had 6 catches for 55 yards. All part of the amazing comeback. Now, they went to overtime, tied at 27, and they stayed tied at the end of the first overtime. So, a tie in the first week, first tie of the season. 27 all. Kiss your sister. Want to? No? Okay. Let's go to Arlington, Texas, as the Dallas Cowboys face the New York Giants. Now, this one was ugly from the start for the New York Giants. They uh, had Barkley running, but that was pretty much it. Eli had a touchdown, but that was all. Uh, couldn't get anything going after the first quarter. Manning did throw for 306 yards and a touchdown. Barkley had 120 rushing yards, but no touchdown. Evan Ingram, the great tight end that New York has, had that only touchdown, receiving 116 yards for Dallas. Now, this is a game, and everybody wanted to see how Elliott would come out after getting his new deal, and Dak Prescott, and seeing how he would fare, knowing that he wants to get paid a ridiculous amount every year coming up. But he showed, at least in that game, that he's worth somewhere around what he wants. And 405 yards, throwing, 4 passing touchdowns, crazy amount. Now Elliott did score a touchdown, but he had only 53 yards. But this was the Prescott show. It was crazy how he did well. Gallup had 158 yards, but not a touchdown. Cooper, Cobb, Jarwin, and Witten each had a touchdown for the Cowboys. Jason Witten came back and played his first game since retiring last year. And Randall Cobb had to feel good for him to come out and play after some injury-plagued years with Green Bay the last few years. And the Dallas defense just did wonderful. The Giant defense did not. Secondary got lit up all game long. It was really, really bad for the Giants defense, as expected. Now, let's go to Sunday Night Football. I would slide in. I don't have room like Chris Collinsworth here. It was the Pittsburgh Steelers and the New England Patriots. Now, there was storylines galore. There was this couple that I read on social media that would drink every time Antonio Brown was mentioned throughout the broadcast, and that was including the pregame shows. So I wonder if they missed work on Monday, depending where they live. For the Steelers, it was really ugly. Ben Roethlisberger had no touchdowns and 1 pick. Threw for 276 yards and threw the ball 47 times. But nothing was working. And offensively, rushing, Connor only had 21 yards. It was really ugly there. Juju had 78 yards. Washington and Connor had 51 and 44, respectively. McDonald had 40. But nothing else was going. Now, the opposite happened for Tom Brady and the Patriots. Brady, 3 touchdowns and no picks, 341 yards passing. Even Edelman had a pass for 32 yards. So that was amazing. Burkhead with 44 yards rushing. Dorsett, 95 yards receiving and 2 touchdowns. Edelman with 83. Gordon with 73. And James White with 51. Burkhead with 41. And their defense for New England was wonderful. So we'll get into the Patriots stuff and the Antonio Brown stuff when we preview week 2, because he's a story in itself. And we'll get to that. So there was a Monday night doubleheader, as they always do. for the first week. It was Houston in New Orleans. Houston led uh, in the first half. They did well. This was a tale of two halves, really. Uh, Watson had three touchdowns and one pick. Oh yeah, the final score of that Steeler game was 33-3 New England, and it could have been worse. Let's just say that. Anyway, Watson had 268 yards and three touchdowns and one pick. It was one of those wild, wild games at the end, back and forth. Carlos Hyde had 83 yards, and Duke Johnson, Duke Johnson Jr. had 57. Watson 40 himself rushing. Hopkins with 111 yards receiving, and two touchdowns. Fuller with 69. Stills with 37. Junior with 33. And this game was just back and forth. At the end of the game, I gotta tell you where I was first of all. I was at the Padre game. Someone, I was watching it on my phone, and people had it in their suites, and then behind me in the broadcasters booth, and they would make noise when something was happening. So the Saints scored, and the Texans scored, and then the Saints ended up kicking a winning field goal to make it 30-28, and it was a long field goal from 61 yards. They did get help before. They were running into the kicker that was very controversial, but they ended up getting the call this time for the Saints, unlike last year. The last time they came out, they filled in a meaningful game. For Breeze, he had 370 yards, two touchdowns, one pick. Kamara had 97 rushing yards. Thomas, 123 yards. Again, Junior with 101. Kamara with 72. So everybody did their part in the second half. They ended up scoring every point except 3 in the second half. It was just one of those games that you're on the edge of your seat for it. I'm literally watching it and wondering what will happen next. The Texans just gave Breeze 33 seconds to work his magic. I guess that's all he needed. He's just one of those greats that, that only needs a little amount of time. No matter where he plays, and no matter what situation he's in, he always seemingly gets the job done. Now, the Broncos went to Oakland for the last time to play the Raiders. And this game, I gotta say, it surprised me. As you can tell behind me, big Raider fan. I did not see the Raiders being so fluent on offense, and they were. Ended up winning 24-16. The Broncos scored late and made it a game, but the Raiders ended up getting much needed first down, and they ended up winning the game. Flacco, who had trouble all game long, they were saying that he was throwing just these little outs, nothing deep, being very very careful, taking no chances. Threw for 268 yards and one touchdown. Freeman and Lindsey didn't do well on the ground, 56 and 43 respectively. Now Sutton had 128 yards, catching Emmanuel Sanders with 86 and a touchdown. But that was it really for the Broncos. And their defense could not get in where Carr was standing or stop Josh Jacobs. Now Carr had 259 yards throwing and one touchdown. And Josh Jacobs, his first game, had 85 yards rushing and two touchdowns, which were huge for the Oakland Raiders. Tyrell Williams, 105 yards receiving and a touchdown. Waller, his first game as the Raiders tight end, had 70 yards receiving, which was amazing. Jacobs had a one reception for a big 28 yards. So it was, and Renfro, let's just put him in there. He had 13 yards receiving. Maybe he'll do more. Now, the Raider defense ended up getting 3 sacks. Farrell with his first of hopefully many throughout his career. The rookie just did well. We only had 5 tackles. It was one of those games that you were proud of. If you're a Raider fan, like I am, and knowing that this is the last Monday night football game in Oakland, you're just proud to be a Raider. And even though they're leaving Oakland and all that, you're just proud that they did it. Proud that uh, there was uh, no letting up, no let up, and it was just great. It was great to see. And, even though I was at the Padre game, I was watching. I was with someone, but I was paying attention to everything. And it's just made my night. And there's more things that made my night too, but that was certainly uh, the icing on the cake for sure. So that was week one. It was wild and a lot of high scores. One tie we had, but a lot of jitters for week one. And now let's go to week two quickly because I know I've been on here for well too long. Okay, week one started as Tampa Bay went into Carolina. Both teams were 0-1, and this was not a pretty game whatsoever. This was one of those games that if you had an option to work overtime and not watch the game, you would. You know. Uh, Now, fortunately, I had friends watching it, so I would too. Um, Now, let's say this. I wasn't tuning in, and then I heard that there was a weather delay, some thunderstorms in the area, as it was raining pretty much the whole first quarter. And both teams had to go into the tunnel and to the locker rooms and wait for a little bit. It's only, I believe, a half an hour delay. It wasn't too long. Uh, but the Bucks did just enough. Defense was pretty good, although Cam Newton again was overthrowing everybody, and he could not run to save his life. He was getting hit, as he has been the last 2 or 3 years. He's just, and I hope I'm wrong about this. He's just declining, and it's just one of those things where you hope it's not the end for him, but it just might be, you know. Maybe he needs time to heal up. I mean, he played through an awful season last year. Maybe if he took some time off, maybe if they're not in contention, you know, maybe he should just chill and heal and come back stronger next season. If things don't work out this season, that's just my opinion. I don't know Cam. I just know that you know the human body will tell you something. I think he's he's not the same. Um, Winston just did enough. Defense again did well. McCaffrey was doing his thing in the slick turf, but wasn't enough. There was a 4th and 1 that really surprised the heck out of me. And this might be something about Cam Newton not being able to run. But there was a 4th and 1 end of the ball game. They needed to score a touchdown. They didn't. And The Panthers went in a wildcat. Cam Newton was lined up, but he was wide. He was outside. Uh, and great play by the Tampa Bay defense uh, made it happen. McCaffrey, instead of going inside, went outside. He tried to dive, but he stepped out of bounds. The Buccaneers ended up winning 20-14. It was never more. There was never more of a lead of 6 points. Jameis Winston had one touchdown, but no picks. Cam with nothing. Uh, Winston did throw 208 yards and one touchdown. Barber had a rushing touchdown. Goodwin, who had a great game, 121 yards rushing, had the passing touchdown. Mike Evans had 61 yards receiving. And unfortunately for my fantasy, O.J. Howard didn't have anything. And that was tough to say. Now, I got to say about Cam Newton, he was sacked 3 times by Barrett. He was in there the whole game. And he did just those 3 tackles. They were all for sacks and all great. Carolina, Cam Newton did throw for 333 yards, but the media and what you saw were the misses on the incompletions that really hurt. McCaffrey had only 37 yards rushing. Bad night on the slick turf. Greg Olsen, being a security blanket for Cam, had 110 yards. Samuel had a great game, 91. DJ Moore with 89. McCaffrey had 16 himself. Hogan had 12. So the passing was there, but they didn't score. The Cam Newton story. So that was tough to see. In week 1, that was really tough to see Cam like that. And this might be an ongoing story of Cam Newton's uh, downfall, if you want to call it. So let's go to Sunday now. What you'll see in a couple of days. Arizona, after tying against Detroit, goes to Baltimore to play the Ravens. Now, Lamar Jackson delivered on his promise. He said, "We're going to have the best offense you'll ever see," and they certainly showed it against Miami. Now they'll face a tougher defense in Arizona, but I expect the Ravens to win as in easy fashion as well. Kyler Murray, he's going to get hounded, I think, by that Baltimore defense. As young as they are, they will be without Jimmy Smith, so that will be a thing to look at for Baltimore. Excuse me, but I do have Baltimore winning easily. Let's go to Pittsburgh. It'll Todd, Seattle's Seahawks, and the Steelers. This one, I expect Juju to have a better game. Connor being home, I expect them to have a better game. Seattle and DJ Metcalf and Lockett and Wilson and the running attack, I expect them to continue to do what they do. I had to do picks. I would go Seattle. I just trust them, but Pittsburgh is home and they're in good weather. So this might be a high scoring affair if Ben gets protection. All they can do is look beyond what happened in week 1 and just play through it. But I got Seattle on that. Indianapolis at Tennessee. Indy can, even though they had a moral loss, they can take what they had from the Charger game and apply it to the Titan game in Tennessee. Tennessee, of course, had a great game in Cleveland. They didn't believe the hype. They shut it down. Some public enemy right there. Uh, for me, I think Tennessee's defense will not destroy, but uh, take down the Colts. I know Mac, he had a wonderful game last time out, but it's going to be harder against Tennessee's defense. So I got Tennessee with that. Dallas and Washington, nah. I got Dallas easy. Uh, I don't care if they're on the road. Washington, I know they have Case Keenum starting, but every time you see a Washington Dallas game in Maryland, it seems like it's a Dallas home game. And they keep tarping off seats. They keep having road fans penetrate their stadium. So I got Dallas easy. I don't trust Washington home or away, especially against a division foe. Uh, Not even against New York, probably. Uh, don't be surprised. I won't be surprised if Hopkins comes in for quarterback for Washington. Even though I know Case Keenum had a great game, and then the status of Adrian Peterson is up in the air for Washington. But I believe Dallas will dominate this game. Next game, I don't want to spend too much time on it, but there is Antonio Brown with the Patriots, and he'll be playing maybe, as the investigation comes up for sexual assault. Uh, Supposedly happened last year. The evidence has yet to come up, but the investigation is on. On the field, the Patriots play the Miami Dolphins, and Miami looking for any positive sign. It's hard right now. That's what it is. I had New England winning that very, very easily. It won't be 59 uh, points given up by Miami, but it'll probably be like 45. I think the hope is that Tom Brady and the starters won't have to play. Hopefully, they'll treat it like an old preseason game where the starters only play like the first half. You don't see any more now in preseason, but I know that's what they hope for. So easily Patriots over Miami. Buffalo will go to New Jersey to play the New York Giants. This game again, with the Bills, it's a toss-up. Every game it seems like it's a toss-up unless they play New England. So this one again, and you credit the Bills defense for coming through. And it's funny, they're playing in the same stadium the first 2 weeks before I think the Bills go home. To play at the New Era Stadium, whatever it's called up in Buffalo, Orchard Park. Uh, I want to believe Barkley will have a great game. I don't think Eli will throw for as many yards. I think this game comes down to a field goal or a last second rushing touchdown, but not Barkley, Saquon Barkley. And I will reluctantly. No, this is tough. I'm doing these picks as we do it, so I'm gonna give the edge to Buffalo and just forget everything I just said. But maybe Barkley will prove me wrong and have a wonderful game. Jacksonville at Houston. Jacksonville, of course, losing Nick Foles in Houston. Coming off that crazy Monday night win, will probably be motivated to roll over the Jacksonville Jaguars. I think the only way Jacksonville wins is if their defense scores all of the touchdowns and Grissom to have a respectable game. But the defense of Houston is always good. I gotta give it to Houston. I got to. Chargers go to Detroit. Of course, Detroit coming off that collapse in Arizona. I got to give it to the Chargers. I think they're going to run over the Lions uh, easily. I think they got it. Uh, unless Stafford has a wonderful game and the running backs around C.J. Anderson. Depends how the Chargers defense does. But I got Chargers. Santa Clara 49ers against the Cincinnati Bengals. This is a tough one again. You can say, hey, 49ers beat the Bucks. Bucks did end up winning the next week. Cincinnati gave Seattle a game. Seattle is better than San Francisco. So do you give the edge to Cincinnati without A.J. Green? You don't trust the 49ers. You don't trust Jimmy G. You don't trust their running game. Joe Mixon is out for Cincinnati. So this might, you know what? I'm gonna go on the record, bold prediction. I'm gonna say this game will be a tie, probably at 21. I think we'll have another tie between these two. But if I had to pick to win, I'd probably go Cincinnati. And then shout out Carlos again, Minnesota and Green Bay in Wisconsin. Packer home opener. This one again tough. And with Green Bay, they had all this time off, as well as Chicago. They had a lot of time to uh, game plan against Minnesota. This one going to be tough to pick and nervous to watch if you're fans for both clubs. Uh, looking how Minnesota did, I'd probably give the edge to Minnesota. Their defense is real good. The offense was great rushing, but Kirk Cousins he was mediocre, 89 yards throwing, very mediocre, I believe. So I'm gonna give it to Minnesota, but Green Bay and their new offense with Matt LaFleur and Rodgers trying to work together, trying to get it going. But I think he's going to have a tough time in the pocket. Be rolling out a lot and being rushed a lot and sacked a lot. I think Minnesota takes that game. Kansas City making their final visit to Oakland. Of course, every time you think of these two, it's a rivalry. And in Oakland, they had the championship game in '69, and the Kansas City ended up edging Oakland, going on to win their first and only Super Bowl. Lynn Dawson and Otis Taylor, Cannon and them. Uh, Tyreek Hill was out, which is a big help for the Raiders. Eric Fisher is questionable. He's the important left tackle. The Raider defense certainly showed what they can do as young as they are. Now they did lose Jonathan Abram, great rookie, so that would be tough. So both teams lose an important part of their team, one more than the other, of course. Uh, if the Raiders can stop Sammy Watkins from having a great game, I know they've probably seen him on the highlights and on the film. It would be a close one if Jacobs can get going, if their Kansas City defense doesn't do as well. This one's tough to pick. I'll go with Kansas City, but hoping the Raiders end up winning. Who knows what will happen with that? Pin one out, another one. Her. There we go. So yeah, Kansas City. And now the game I think of the week. It's New Orleans coming to the Coliseum for the last time in the regular season as they play the Los Angeles Rams. Remember last year with that big non-call in the championship game that opened the door for LA to come back and tie and end up winning that field goal overtime. New Orleans is going to be hungry. The fans are going to be hungry, not for gumbo, but for the LA heart. And I know they'll be out for revenge for sure. This one tough to pick as well. I want to go New Orleans, and I might. Uh, it'll be a close game. New Orleans defense can get after Goff, uh, frustrate Gurley, but the receiving core of Woods, Cooks, Cup, they're very good. Remember, in that championship game, they did not have Cooper Cup. So, I'm going New Orleans, but I want to say LA, but I'll go New Orleans for now. Let's go to two teams that have the same colors, Chicago and Denver. They're playing in Mile High. Chicago did not look good. Denver did not look good week one. This one might be another good one. Unless Mitchell Trubisky gets something going, they have a lot of time off, just like Green Bay did. We'll see how they do. We'll see if Denver can get their running game going. If Joe Flacco can take some shots, even though against uh, Bears defense. I'm gonna give the slight edge to Chicago. It's gonna be one of those close ones. It might come down to one of those field goals. And the kicker, I forget his name, but he passed the test last week. Yeah, week one at least. Kicking for the Bears, he made his field goal, and he might have to be a factor in the game against Denver week two here. Sunday night football. Uh, the Philadelphia Eagles go to Atlanta to play Falcons. Now, the Eagles did lose a key part of their defense, and I know Atlanta feels embarrassed after last week. I'm gonna go Philadelphia, but I feel like this game is gonna be back and forth. Playing indoors, anything can happen. Atlanta, if Matt Ryan gets hot, if Freeman gets going, that's new. You got Julio Jones who wants to, I think, prove why he got his contract. I think he wants to come out and play well, but that Philly defense, I think, is going to be too much enough to beat Atlanta. So I got Philadelphia. So for the Monday Night Football, which is 50 years of Monday Night Football, by the way. Now, uh, 50 seasons ago to start Monday Night Football, as the Monday Night Football team plays. Great timing. Not a, I didn't even read it. Cleveland will go to New Jersey to play the New York Jets. Now back in 1970, the Jets with Joe Namath went to go play the Cleveland Browns at their old ballpark. And this game is difficult. But I think Cleveland will win. I think they felt embarrassed. I think they heard from the media all week long to say, hey, we're better than what we showed. You guys are great. We're going to prove it. So I think they'll wake up. I think Odell coming back to his former home stadium. I think you'll see some Giant jerseys in the crowd. And I think they'll have a star-studded game on the national stage. I think Baker Mayfield will. Running game will do well. Defense will show out. Myles Garrett, he wants to do better than he did against Tennessee last week. Jets without Sam Darnold. Uh, they're gonna have a hard time with their backup in. Le'Veon Bell, he's gonna get his sweet passes, but I feel like that's the only thing the Jets have. is Le'Veon Bell in this game. So if the Jets defense doesn't get after Baker Mayfield, you, uh, I have the Browns by at least 14. So that was week one uh, recap and a week two predictions. I'm going to do this every week. We'll have a Raider dedicated video coming up very soon. That'll come right after this one. We'll do that very soon. And thank you for watching, whoever you are. And we'll see you later.